you want something, you want a target that you're moving towards. I know that I've talked about discipline and I talked about that as well. But discipline without direction, I've noticed is just kind of self-punishment. So I shared with you, I began to call myself lazy and a procrastinator. And what had just dawned on me a second ago is how many people that we see, they just walk around being stressed and busy, but then they're not really aiming at anything, are they? So I've noticed there's two types of people in this game. There's the ones that hope that things work out, and then those that decide what the outcome is and then reverse engineer it. What I'm wanting to say is if you don't have a target, then you're not going to have a reason to move. And then if you don't have a reason to move, you're then going to stall and then distract. And then similar to me, you'll call it procrastination. And here's the real play. You don't fix procrastination by trying to be more disciplined. You instead fix it by building a future that is so compelling that then if you do nothing, it'll become painful. So I want you to think like an operator. If I gave you 3 to 5 years and I told you, how would you like to build a life that actually works or stay exactly where you are? Then I want you to think about what that life would look like. What kind of money are you controlling? Let's think about what kind of deals are you in? Who's in your circle? And then think about what your day will actually feel like. But if you can't see it, then you can't move towards it. I used to think that success is based on massive moves. And what I realized is it's based on instead small executed executions repeated daily. But here's the twist. Your schedule shouldn't feel like a prison. What I do is I make it feel like a blueprint for a day or for the day that I want to live. So one of the things that I remind myself is that I'm not a machine and neither are you. You are a negotiator. So let's stop trying to dominate ourselves and instead let's start making deals with ourselves. Before we talk about deals, acquisitions, I want you to understand this, that if you can't control your time, you're then not going to be able to control your assets. And if you can't execute daily, then you're not going to be able to close consistently. So let's work on that first. Let's talk about how this actually applies to land acquisitions, because Module 10 is how a venture capital genius controls that room briefing, also known as the underground syndicate field manager. So now that we've handled that, let's get into something important here, because this is where most people think that they're selling land. And if you think that way, then you're already losing. When your listing goes live, something subtle but important changes. Let me slow that down because this is where the shift happens. You are no longer marketing land. You are instead managing deal flow through put. When I say through put, what I mean by that is every inbound message, every call, every text is no longer noise. It is a potential liquidity event. And once you understand that, you're then going to stop reacting and you're going to start operating. What your job is now going to be is you're not persuading, you want control. You want to have control over time. You want control over information. And you also want control of your tone. And then, of course, the control of the momentum. What I have noticed is that most people never seem to make that kind of transition. And I think that's why they stay stuck. See, this module is going to be your operating system on how to handle without oversharing and without losing leverage. I want you to know who you're talking to. Because before you say anything, before you respond, or maybe I should say before you engage, I want you to know exactly who you're dealing with. Because not all buyers deserve that equal energy. So your first job is going to be classification instantly. Now, here's the golden rule. If you remember nothing else from this section, I want you to remember this. Your listing is the script. More than 90% of buyer questions are already going to be in your due diligence driven ad. They just maybe didn't read it. And that's fine. Okay. I mentioned that it's fine, but you don't compensate on that with your time. So your default response is going to be calm, neutral, and identical. All of that is covered on the listing along with the additional details. So you want to have them take a look and then let you know. Because what this does is three things simultaneously. It reclaims your time, it re-anchors authority, and number three, it filters unserious buyers. I don't want you to become customer service. I want you to remain the operator. Now let's talk about something that kills most deals, and it's called silence. Buyers disappearing is normal. Silence is not going to mean rejection. Most people fail here because they interpret that emotion, that silence as emotion. But you're not going to do that. I don't want you to operate under emotion, but position. So after 2 to 3 days, I want you to send one message. Here's what you can say. Still interested in the property? Question mark. It's available, period. How can I help you move forward? Question mark. That's it. This way, you're not putting any pressure. You're not apologizing, and you don't want to come across like you're chasing them. That single follow-up is going to revise deals that most amateurs are going to assume are dead. But yours are going to convert because you're a leader, and leadership converts. Let me talk to you about asking for the sale, because now we arrive at the moment where money is made, where money is printed, and where most investors freeze. You must ask this directly. When that buyer finishes their questions, you're going to initiate the close by saying, "Great, are you ready to purchase the property?" That sentence is going to collapse ambiguity because most buyers are looking for permission to move forward, and you're going to give it to them. On that note, you also want to match their communication style. This might seem simple, but I remember I've violated it quite a bit. And I want you to remember that this is non-negotiable. If they text, then I want you to text. And if they email, I want you to email. And if they call, then you're going to call. The reason why you're going to do that is because people buy based on comfort. I know I've closed on properties from never hearing the buyer's voice because I respected their channel. And the syndicate adapts. The buyer decides how. I want you to educate you on something very simply because that's what you want to do. You want to educate the people simply and never technically. I want you to remember that not everyone that's in front of you is experienced. Many buyers have never purchased land. Some people think that they can just hand you cash and then leave with a deed as if it was, I don't know, some used car or something. So when needed, you are going to have to simplify. So when needed, I want you to explain it just like this verbatim. Because you're going to say it works just like buying a house. The attorney or title company handles everything. They're going to handle the paperwork, deed transfer, recording, and the funds. It's very simple and it's secure. That's it, guys. I want you to keep it short. I want you to keep it clear. Let's stay away from any kind of jargon, guys, because let's remember you're the expert. You're not a professor here. Let's also talk about owner financing because I at first had a little bit of fear on that, and we want to remove fear. This is where uncertainty shows up. Buyers will ask, when do I get the deed? How are payments collected? What can I do on the land? And your job here is going to be clarity, not persuasion. I want you to explain the timeline, the agreements, and then the mechanics. Buyers are not going to fear payments. What they fear is unknowns. And confidence is going to dissolve that fear. Also, on that note, honesty is a power move. This is where trust is either built or it's destroyed. If a buyer asks something obscure, like, can I raise alpacas? Or can I park a tiny home during the hunting season? What you don't want to do is you don't want to ever guess. Here's what I want you to say exactly. I'm not certain. The county and county zoning department can answer that precisely. Here's their number. And then you just follow up a few days later. And then you're going to say, were you able to get clarity from zoning? Do you see what that does, guys? That builds trust and authority simultaneously. And I have noticed in the past that speculation is going to weaken you, but that truth is going to strengthen you. Another clean way to do this, you could say something like, I don't answer zoning questions. I direct you to zoning because the moment I become the source, I then become the liability and in this business. I don't want to win by being the smartest guy in the room. I want to win by staying in position. So let me give you guys the final takeaway. Helpful is dangerous. Precise is powerful. Let's also talk about the maybe buyer feedback that I call intelligence. Let's shift a perspective for a moment. Every conversation that you're having is data. I want you to realize that if multiple buyers mention the same concern, that's free market data. Use it to adjust the pricing. Maybe you use it to sharpen the ads. Or maybe you'll use it to clarify the position. Every buyer conversation is going to be a metric. And operators like us are going to track signals. Those that are amateurs, they ignore metrics like this. And your objective on every buyer interaction. And if you want to simplify everything, we just covered into one operating framework. Here it is. Stay calm, stay brief, stay authoritative. Direct them to the listing, ask for the sale, and then close efficiently. Remember, you are not a salesperson. You are an operator managing a micro asset exchange. And I want you to understand this as well. As we close, the buyer will either convert, become a future lead, join your buyer database, or they'll fade. All the outcomes for you are going to be wins when you learn to stay in control.